You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa, what up, mi gente? What's poppin'? It's your boy Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders Podcast. And today we got a treat. An amazing independent creator that had a kick-ass Kickstarter called Lycan Solomon's Odyssey Chapter 1, right? Chapter 2 is popping. That's what he's here for. But he also is a host of an amazing D&D podcast, probably the best D&D podcast, Botched, D&D Podcast, all right? He's also, he's the writer behind this awesome joint. Let me bring on the one, the only, Mr. Dennis Robinson. Wepa, what's going on, kiddo? How you doing?
How am I supposed to follow that up? Like, that's so much energy. Like, how am I supposed to, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do here. I got all kinds of hats in here. I feel like I should have done something crazier, but that's fine.
Yeah, right.
You're doing pretty all right. Thanks for having me on, Al.
Nah, brother, no, thank you for coming on and talk about this awesome project. I've been reading it. I'm gonna be honest, I have not finished reading, but you got me hooked like a fish that I almost got upset. I was about to say, can we wait another hour? I want to finish. Interrupting my reading. How dare you? And he's the writer, folks. You know what I mean? But so far, what I've read is wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm really digging it. I'm flowing with it. I'm like, all right, this is cool. I like the time setting. I am a Conan fan, so I like the whole setting. So, but we're gonna get into all that stuff. So, folks that don't even know you, you know what I mean? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where you from? OG? Where you at?
So, I didn't actually get too far away from where I started. So, I grew up in the outskirts of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and now I live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm a consultant by day, podcaster by night, and then in whatever little spare time I have left, I create comic books. I started creating about 5 years ago, and then the first book finally came out on Kickstarter last year, and then I finally got the physical copies like 2 months ago, so I just started selling those recently.
Ooh, awesome. So growing up, in that area, how did you even get into pop culture? Who introduced it to you, or was it self-discovery?
I would say self-discovery. So, like, especially like werewolves and stuff like that. I just kind of stumbled upon it while at the library, because in elementary school they make you go to the library. I forget how many days a week, and I just happened to come upon a book that was all about the Universal monster movies, and so there was one about the Wolfman with Lon Chaney, and so that's how I sort of discovered that. And I would say everything else kind of fell through things like the Sci-Fi Channel. Like, I got really into Godzilla because they would always have Godzilla marathons and stuff like that. So I just always seem to stumble into things. And then, I just keep, it's kind of like Katamari Damacy. I just keep adding things on as I roll along. And so, yeah, now I have this whole nerd thing going on.
Don't you love the nerd thing? So did you have a clique of nerds while you were growing up, or are you a lone wolf?
So I sort of floated around from friend group to friend group.
He's the floater.
So, like, we would have the band nerds, you'd have the jocks, you'd have the redneck types, like whatever. Like, I can usually talk with anybody about anything. My family's all over the place too, so I've sort of gotten used to being able to communicate with all kinds of different people from all walks of life. So then when I went to college, that's when I really started to settle into the nerd roots. And then after college, it just basically ramped up from there, especially after I started the D&D podcast. That kind of goes without saying. You get kind of super nerdy.
So the D&D podcast, okay, so what was first? Was it the comic book creation, or was it the podcasting?
Technically, I had the idea for the comic book 10 years ago, but I shelved it. And then the podcast started 6.5 years ago. So technically, the comic book came first, but...
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, come on now. See what he's doing us?
So the only reason the comic book even exists is because of the podcast. So you and I were talking backstage before the show. We go to Dragon Con every year, and I love Dragon Con. And our first year we went to Dragon Con, we're hanging out with other podcasters, other nerds, And we started talking comics and things like that. And I said, I had a comic book idea back in the day, and they had me pitch the idea to them. And they said, this is definitely something you should probably do. And then I started from that point trying to figure out how to write a comic book. And so, yeah, if it wasn't for the podcast, I wouldn't even have the comic book probably.
All right, so let's talk about the podcast a little. What made you start, get into podcasting? I'm always interested in those stories.
We were drunk. That's how it got started. We were drunk.
The D&D was drunk and dizzy. All right, gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, most people probably know already. When you play in D&D with your friends, usually there's some drinking involved. So we started playing D&D about 7-8 years ago, and we had this other podcast we used to listen to called Nerd Poker, and it's like a bunch of stand-up comedians that do a D&D podcast. And then it went off the air because they all got busy with lives and went their separate ways for a while. And we just got to drinking one night after we got done playing, and we're like, hey, I think people would really enjoy this weird crap that we always end up getting into. Should we start a podcast? So we literally got equipment out of a barn. Like one of the guys on our show, Phil, his manager or boss used to be in a band. So he has all this musical equipment, but it's all just sitting in a barn. Like he never uses it. So he acquired a soundboard. He got some mic stands. We bought some really cheap like $20 microphones and started to play around with things and try and figure things out. And then, just started podcasting. And then slowly over time, the show kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So then we started upgrading from $20 mics to 60 to 90, $400 mics. Like, so it just ramped up and up and up.
He mumbled when he said 400. He said,
yeah.
Everybody, hey, luckily I've been lucky. I did start with $20 mics, but I actually won a good show mic thanks to Podfest. I don't know if you were of that program. Shout out to Chris.
Okay.
Podfest commits those. Yeah, dude, great podcasting show. He's definitely gotta check that out. That whole platform. Lot of education.
That's actually the next planned mic. That's the final phase of mic evolution, as far as we know, is to get one of those Shores. At least I've been told they're like the best of the best. So
awesome. Let's get it done, kiddo. Say you're kicking ass there. Say you've been kicking ass on this book. Let me bring up this baby that we were talking about, because I'm gonna show you guys the first one that he did. All right. So the chapter 1 that was, look at this, 177 backers. It's over 10,000. Awesome, dude. I mean, how much were you looking for when you started? I mean, this is your first Kickstarter ever and your first book, right? So it's a double whammy.
Oh yeah, double whammy.
Oh whoa!
I set the goal at 6,000. I think it was either 6,000 or 6,600. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was around 6.
Okay, awesome.
And I was very paranoid about the 6.
So how did you feel about Okay, first off,
sure.
Why Kickstarter? Why did you choose that platform as your first platform with all the available options today?
So I have known a few people. So I've backed projects on Kickstarter before, so I was familiar with it that way. Okay. And I know a few people who have done Kickstarter projects. And I know through Botched, there's a few of the artists that we work with. They've also done Kickstarter projects. So I sort of just picked that one up because it seemed like the one that a lot of people were using, and I liked the look of it. I liked how it worked, and I wanted to go with a platform that has a big audience that could just discover it. And even though I didn't get the projects we love sort of like logo put on things, which I tried to ask. I was like, how does one even get that? And they said, it's just we pick it. There's not really any way to get it.
It's like getting the blue check mark on Twitter, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping, since the first one was successful, maybe they'll notice the second one. They'll give me that little tag, because if you get the projects we love, then you go into a special place on the website, and then more people can discover you. So there are, and the staff that I spoke with while I was trying to set things up, and I had lots of questions. They were super nice, super helpful. So so I would say that's why I went with Kickstarter instead of like Indiegogo or Crowdfunder or anything.
I asked because I'm in Greenpoint, and this is kind of where their office is at around here.
Oh, okay.
So when they were in Manhattan, on the Lower East Side, I went to one of their functions where they had invited a lot of people that have Kickstarter projects to talk with potential backers as well. It's a nice little networking event. It was really cool. So Kickstarter does two really different things. They don't really announce stuff like that too much. I haven't seen, but hopefully with the all this stuff kind of dying down, hopefully we have these opportunities to get a network on that level. So
Yeah,
talk to me again. This being your first baby,
correct.
how what was that like for you? Again, making your first comic, building a team. Like, what even direction did you get? Like, how did you figure this out, bro?
The best way to describe the entire thing was messy. So I have no idea how to write a comic back then. So the first version of the book is some sort of weird mutant abomination cross between a comic and a regular book. Like it
Okay.
sort of reads it's just like an overly descriptive book that it just didn't really work in either way. But the idea was to sort of get the overall story across and um, just get feedback in terms of like, okay, like what character should I build on, things I
Yeah.
should change, things I should work on, stuff like that. So I gave that first iteration of the book to friends. They checked it out. They said, okay, spend some more time, here with these characters, do more with this, do more with that, less of this, less of that. And so I just kept refining it, rewriting it, refining it, rewriting it, but it still wasn't a comic script. And then I have a good friend, Shannon, who is pretty close knit in the comic community. And she, one way or another, got me in touch with my first editor, but this was before he was my editor. His name's Henri Pumpen. And he
Oh
was
man, I
giving me,
know. Oh man, that's
you
my
know,
that's
Henri?
my boy. Yes,
Yeah.
of
So
course.
look on the screen right there. His name is right there at the top.
Oh
It's
man,
Pumpen.
that's my homie. Yes, yes.
Okay, didn't know you know him, but yeah,
Hey man, this
super great
community
guy.
is small, I guess.
I know, right? So he set me up with sort of like a script format. So I started to, rework the book into more of a script. And then he actually put me in touch with his first editor that he ever had. And this is where the first big speed bump happened, where so I gave everything to that guy, and the guy said,
Mm,
there is nothing salvageable about this book. But
oof.
if you'd like to learn how to write comics, you can pay me $1,800 and then we'll go do that. And I
What?
said, cool, thanks, but no thanks. And so I almost quit at that point. And my
Wow.
roommate, Phil, who's also a member of Botched, was like, if you don't continue this project, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed in you, which was
Mm.
ironic because he was giving me crap constantly on Twitch every week, through the book. So I said, okay. So
That's what
then
friends do, bro. That's love.
yeah. So then Henri actually uh, spoke with Shannon again, and he contacted me and said, I want to be the editor on the book.
Oh,
So
wow.
I gave him everything I had, and he goes, look, he's like, obviously you need to work on some things. You've never done this before. You have no idea what you're doing. He's like, but to say there's nothing there is not true. So he worked with me on writing the script basically from scratch. The overall story is the same, but like he taught me how to better describe panels, like how should
Okay.
panels look, captions, dialogue,
Uh,
like what should
Not
be
just
included
writing
in
a
it.
story, but being so
Exactly.
descriptive on top of it.
Everything, yeah, everything.
Set the mood, kiddo.
Yeah, and so then he also worked with me to uh, start to try and find an art team, and at the same time, I used my networking through one of my botched artists. They put me in touch with, well, their husband actually, who is also in the comics industry, and he put me
Okay.
in touch with a Facebook group called I think it's called Pairing Writers with Artists, and it's a very legit page where you have to have like legit ads for work, or they will just boot you right out of the group, and it can't be like, oh, work for exposure or anything like that. So because I had tried DeviantArt and you get a ton of responses, but there wasn't a lot of great quality, at least for what I was looking for. Because there was a particular style I was going for, and just
Of course.
nothing was jumping out to me. So we tried this Facebook group, and the quality was much, much higher. And I ended up finding a group of artists that I thought could work. So I gave them a tryout, and one of them, Sal Denaire, who's the artist on the book, love his work so much. He hit
Hmm.
the nail on the head for exactly what I was looking for.
I mean,
Um,
look at this stuff. Look at that.
yeah, and the colorist, his name is Ezekiel Dominguez, and I love the color because originally it was going to look more like sort of this type of desert.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, for nighttime scenes, like I love color, so like I don't even care if it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make sense. Give me more color. Think the Aladdin color palette,
Huh.
blues, purples,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
That's
he was all
beautiful.
for that. He's just like, yeah, more color.
Yeah, it definitely portrays night though. That you don't miss the mark here. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So I got incredibly lucky with the art team that we put together. And my letterer, Joel Saavedra, he actually came over from Henri. That's Henri's letterer that he
Oh,
uses
really?
for all of his books. So Henri had put me in touch with him, and then boom, that's the art team. There's no inker on the project. So the style I was going for, I actually didn't like the way things looked if they were inked in order to get that style. So we
Yeah.
just didn't go with it. And I think it
Gotcha.
worked out great personally. But
I mean, it's a gorgeous book. Look at this stuff.
thank you.
Amazing. And I like that. You got those old school panels and wordy, like the old school books. Like, you buying something that actually is gonna
Yeah.
keep you entertained for a while. It's not a Marvel DC 10-minute read book. That's not what this is. This is
No.
dope.
Well,
Nice long read, that you enjoy.
so that was another speed bump that I had to figure out. So yeah, I had the script written and I had the rules that Henri taught me, but after the art was put on there, the artist was like, "You got too many. You got too many dialogue boxes. Like
You're
you gotta,
covering my art.
yeah, you gotta cut some stuff down."
Tone it down, baby.
So originally the book was 60 pages, and then Henri said, it's going to be tough to sell a 60-page book. We should make it 24 pages. So I couldn't take 60 and make it 24. Like that just didn't work. Like there's too much stuff to cut to make it 24. So I said, okay, what if we cut the book in half and then release it as halves? And he's like, okay, that should work. So we made a 24-page book. But again, that's when I got the comment, there's too many dialogue boxes. So I added 2 pages, and then I added 2 pages, and then I added 2 pages. So it was 30 pages. And then COVID hit. And after COVID hit, the art got delayed quite a while. So then the second half of the book essentially got done before the Kickstarter was supposed to launch. So I said, well, screw it. We'll just put the book back together. So then instead of 2 30-page books, it was just one 60-page book again, with 12 pages of extras and whatnot. So.
Oh, there you go. Again, and people need that type of entertainment. Again, it's a dope breed. I've already passed all that stuff. Yeah, and all this. But yeah, look at this. I mean, look at that blood splatter. Look at that head rolling. I mean, where's the inspiration from, bro? Really? You said that you've held this onto this for over 10 years and shelved it. Yeah. But what made you really shelve it? And I know you said it was Lon Chaney, but I mean, you also have like history stuff going on. So this isn't that Lon Chaney type of
No. So this is way older. This takes place in 8000 BC, so like way, way, way before Lon Chaney. So there's a few things that sort of went into why I made the book the way that I did. So I obviously love werewolves, mostly because I like that duality. Same reason why I like the Hulk. Same reason why I like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like that sort of duality where there's like 2 separate sort of things going on, and one half doesn't necessarily have control over the other half, that kind of thing. I always enjoyed those kinds of stories. Yeah. So that's the first part. And I just dig werewolves. I think they're cool. You don't get a whole lot of werewolf stories. You get a ton of vampires, you get a ton of zombies. You don't get a whole lot of werewolves, even though they're way cool.
Agreed.
And then I love mythology as well. So I originally got into mythology by playing the God of War games. So I got really, really into Greek mythology. But then I started through the podcast, actually, starting to branch out and check out other countries' mythology, Japanese mythology, Chinese mythology. So with this, I actually got to explore. Now, the first book doesn't delve as much into Saudi Arabian mythology, but the second book that comes out soon actually delves a lot more into Arabian mythology. So you have monsters that are Saudi Arabian in origin, and some stories of myth that get wrapped in that. So I've always liked the idea of having sort of a alternate history telling, sort of, but also mixing in monsters and mythology, because that stuff's always been a huge part of human culture anyway. So I'm like, okay, so what if all that stuff was a thing? So I've always wanted to do something like that.
Again, it's on to a Conan fan. You know what I mean? I love that. And the barbarian era and all that stuff.
I was gonna say this earlier, but I was waiting for a point, so I'm glad that you brought that back up. So the artist who did the cover, his name's Christian Dabari, and he did, I forget if it was because of the cover or if it was because some of the other stuff from the Kickstarter that he shared, but he got the ability to do covers for Conan because of that stuff.
Say word.
So, yeah, so because he messaged me, he's like, hey, because of the stuff that you had me working on, Conan saw it, or like whoever it is that produces Conan saw it, and they, had me do a cover for him. So it's like, that's super awesome.
Nice.
So small world.
Nice. Congrats. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But you see, people sharing, and that's what happens. This is what this community is about. Independent community, and got him, a good gig with a major player. I mean, that helps anyone's career, dude. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Salute.
And the reason I shelved it was because, well, at the time I was a therapeutic support staff, aka making $18,000 a year. So I didn't have any money to do any of that stuff, and I was like, that's not really a realistic thing. Like, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to make a comic book.
Okay.
So I shelved.
You were one of those. You were a pessimist then.
Well, I prefer the term realist, but yes, I'm pessimist. But yeah, so I shelved it, and then, like I said, through podcasting, I sort of got back into it, and I was like, okay, well, I have a little bit of money now, so I could probably afford to put together an art team. And while it's very expensive, it's still cheaper than I originally thought it was going to be. So yeah, so my job, technically, I don't have kids, I don't have a wife or anything like that. So literally, all the money I make at work basically just goes.
Congrats, bro. Congrats, bro.
Yeah,
man, congrats. I'm not saying that's it, but I'm not making fun of you being single. I'm just saying, opportunity there to invest in yourself as you should and dedicate time to your craft. So awesome, bro. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. There's why that podcast is popping, right? Number one, baby. Come on.
There you go.
Again, yeah. See, this is what I love, and why this panel usage too. I mean, do you like 80s comics? Because that's kind of what it reminds me of. Like,
so,
late 70s, early 80s, a lot of panels like this.
So the actual panel layout. So I had. So when I wrote up the script, I had written up the panels in my head, just like fairly standard, equidistant. But part of what I love about Sal's work is that he can take the panels and then arrange them in an interesting order. Or, like even one of the first couple pages you showed, like some panels don't have a border, or like things go across panels.
Let's go.
Go back down again to the head rolling scene.
Oh yeah, the head roller. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, so like that bottom panel doesn't have a box to it, and it sort of bleeds behind the other panels. And there's a few other pages in the book where, there's something leaping out of one panel into another panel and things like that. So I love the creativity with how he takes the panels and still like makes them different.
It's very 3D to me because again, look, his head is over this panel but under this one, and then that hand, the way it's just. That's Jesus Christ! Look at those claws.
So I would say, I don't know if I had any particular sort of inspiration in terms of like how I laid out the pages. I just sort of visualize in my head what I want to happen and then try and fit it on a page where it's not too busy or anything like that.
What inspired this cover? Look at that. That's so fire, my God.
So the first cover, Dabari did both of these covers. And the first cover, Christian just had free reign to do whatever it is that he wanted to do.
Which is
and then
this
I said,
one,
hey,
right?
Yeah, that one right there.
Which is amazing too.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then the colorist, Ezekiel, he actually did the colors for the covers too. So but for that one, I was like, I kind of want to have sort of like that classic sort of Star Wars where things are layered in a certain way. And so I tried sketching things out, but I'm very, very rusty at drawing. So that didn't go so well. So then I basically put a collage of pictures together to like where people were in similar poses to try and give an idea of like where things were. And he's like, oh, okay, gotcha. And then he built it up from there.
Amazing. I love the cover. Fire. You had great rewards. Again, this one was already funded, but this is what we're talking about. You got introduced to the world. But look, folks, Wepa, chapter 2. I mean, look at that artwork on that corner right there. Jeez, doesn't that look like it's a rock and roll crazy Deadite joint or something going on? What's going on with chapter 2? When is this coming out, bro? Preach. Yeah, and who you said? Christian? Who?
So Christian Dabari did this particular cover. There's going to be 2 other
Okay.
covers. They're not done just yet, so I can't share those. But they will be part of the Kickstarter, so they'll be done by the time the Kickstarter comes out. But for right now, this is the only cover that I'm sort of sharing right now. So as I was mentioning, Saudi Arabian folklore or mythology. So you had mentioned, I think it was backstage, you called them zombies, but they're actually ghouls. And ghouls are neat in Arabian folklore because they feed on the remains of the dead, and then they can take on the form of that person, and then trick basically whoever it is to like coming away with them. And then they eat them too. So
they're almost like Chew, just they take over.
Yeah,
like Ghost Whisperer, a Chew mixed with Ghost Whisperer.
Yeah, a little bit. So this book, so the series of books, my plan is 15 books overall, and 3 major arcs, and each arc has 5 chapters. Now, most of the time, the chapters are going to be like jump ahead in time a little bit, but the second book takes place directly after the first book. So right after the page ends for the first book, this one kicks off, same day, maybe a little bit later in the day.
You got the Halloween stuff going on when part 2 came on. Same day. Here we go. What's going on?
Yep.
Love it.
But so without giving too much away, this book really delves into sort of the internal struggles while also expanding on things like magic and mythology of the region, because he first discovered that world, that there's other stuff going on, and now like that starts to expand. So now he's really falling into everything and sort of discovering all the different things that are going on. But it really touches a lot on PTSD. This book does.
Wonderful. I mean, was that something in particular that you had in mind to do, and any particular reason why?
Well, so in my head, anyways, if somebody's a werewolf, and as most werewolf movie stories go, they end up, killing people. And I figure, if you wake up in the next morning and you're just covered in blood and guts and you've realized what you've done, you're probably going to have some PTSD with that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I really wanted with the series to really, especially this first arc, to touch on PTSD and then later on addiction and things like that. So those were just some themes that I really wanted to go with, because I thought that it would make for a more interesting story than just having him, bounce around from place to place and like having no consequences to his action and being totally cool with everything that's going on around him. So PTSD, I have family members and friends that suffer from it, and it can really be debilitating. So I kind of wanted to bring that out a little bit in the book. So
good for you, brother, and thank you for that service, for real, because a lot of people suffering. I know I have friends that had served, and they're dealing with that on a different level that I can't even understand. Like, all it could be is try to be there for them, and hope that they could get over the trauma they experience. One day at a time, guys and gals. But dope, man. So is there an expected date of launch? Can you tease that?
Yes. So September 2nd is when it'll go live. It'll probably go live about like 8 a.m. in the morning. It depends on when I wake up from Dragon Con. So my plan
right after Dragon Con, he's gonna pimp it as Dragon. I see you.
Yeah. So last year I did the same thing, where the first day of Dragon Con, the first big day of Dragon Con anyways, before going to the convention, I launched the Kickstarter. So that way while I was on panels, I could be like, hey, check out the book, stuff like that. Now this time it'll actually be better because I can actually, carry books and show off books this time, as opposed to last time where I just had postcards. I was like, hey, go to this website and check out the book, kind of thing.
And talk to Henri about how to pimp your books too. Let me tell you. Every time I run at him, he's not sitting behind the table. He's in front of the table holding books like, yo, you need to check this out. And he's handing it. He stopped so many people. He a pimp. I mean, he tried to stop me. I said, Henri is me. You go, oh shit! I was like, damn, you're on your A game, baby.
He did that to me too last year.
He pimping,
I was going to say hi, and he's like, "Hey, can I tell you about a book?" I was like, "I've already bought all your books." He's like, "Oh, sorry." Once he gets in sales mode, he's just automatic. He's a machine.
Yeah, but and that's the way independent creators should be. That's, I don't even know for that. He's a real hustler and someone that really puts himself out there. I mean, that's what you need to do. Make sure if you need me, I'll do it too. I'll pop up from under the table. Like, where are you gonna buy this book?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much of a salesman streak in me to be able to do what Henri does. Like that guy is just on a whole nother level. I mean, I've gone to my first 2 conventions and I've done all right, but not like Henri levels. Like, but there's
You
also
got some product. You could compete with him soon. You know, you gotta have a table right next to him, and you just go at it, guys.
well, he
See who gets the most
actually,
people
so
stop.
he had bought like 20 books to sell at conventions. He's already sold out of them because, of course,
Oh
he's
wow,
I mean, yeah, he's going to
he's
sell
the
them, no
man.
problem. Yeah.
See, good people. That's the type of good people you know in life
Oh
supporting
yeah.
your product. And you heard it, folks. Number second, right there. That right here again. Can I gotta keep showing it off to you? I need you guys to go to the Lycan book. Let me spell it out for you guys. LYCANBOOK.com. Lycan book. All right. You want the notifications on when this bad boy go out, you know, and let's get them extra. Let's make it a Kickstarter project that they love because everybody else is gonna love it for sure. Now,
Thank you.
we're talking about conventions. What are you gonna be? What's the next convention again? And are there any? Is just one, a couple? What's popping? We need to know the
So
schedule, bro.
I made the mistake of never going to conventions and then signing up for 3 conventions in 1 month while also working a 40-hour-a-week job.
No sleep.
So I kind of burned myself out the first 2 weeks of August. So I went to Roanoke, Virginia for Big Lick Comic Con the first weekend in August. And then last weekend I was in Wellsboro, PA for their first ever Comic Con, which was lovely. And I have off this weekend. So I'm going to enjoy that. But the last weekend of August, I'm going to the Maryland Poppin' Horror Con. That's over in Baltimore.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Dope.
Because I've actually gotten a lot of comments from people at conventions that stop and look at the book and they're like, "Oh, that's too scary," and I'm like, "It's really not that scary, but all right, that's fair." So I'm hoping at a horror con that's more what they're looking for, anyways. So
absolutely, I've been to horror cons for sure. They're awesome, amazing. There's our horror comic vendor guys, so you know you got this. Absolutely, would definitely fit in. I mean, look at what that cover. You give them this kind of shit right there. Poster of this right now. What? Yeah. They'll eat it up. Eat it up. Yeah. It's fire.
Well, like I said, I'm always happy with Christian's work. Like his covers are just phenomenal. But then Dragon Con's the week after that. But I'm not really selling too much at Dragon Con. I'm going to be promoting the Kickstarter, but I'm not going to be selling books too much. You can't really do that while you're on panels. They kind of frown on that. But we have our live show. So Botched does a live show every year at Dragon Con.
Cool.
Sunday night at 10 p.m. in the Grand
in front of people.
Oh yeah.
So,
normally
wait a minute. You see, that's something that bugs me out. Hold on, because you know I've been doing podcasts and all. Like, how do you even get something like that together, and how do you even feel rocking a show that's live? That's kind of crazy to me. I know this is live, but in front of on a stage.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, so our first show we ever did at Dragon Con had just under 200 people in the room, and none of them had heard of our show before. Only one person in the audience had listened to the show. And then they moved us up to a bigger room, and then we were looking at like 300-ish people. The room that we're moving to now is like in the main area of foot traffic, and it holds I think it's 1,000 people. So we'll see, you know, how much we fill it. It's a really good time slot, and it's on a good day too. So so it could be upwards of 1,000, but I don't know. I've never really gotten. I guess I got so desensitized the first Dragon Con because I got thrown on so many panels, just one after another.
Okay. Good.
That I just got used to it. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. And the live shows are fun because, so like it's a D&D podcast and it's improv comedy anyways. So it kind of works great on a stage. Like we're still sitting at our table. We're all dressed up. Like I got my costume already ready to go. I've been trying to break in the boots for the last week now, so
you got them on now, bro? Come on.
no, I actually took them off before coming down.
I'm about to say you gotta go like this and start flexing your shoes, bro, and shit.
I know, so I've been putting on
shoe cam.
So it's they're Western boots, so I've been putting on like super thick socks and just wearing them for like 8 hours a day to just like try and get them stretched out a bit.
Oh damn, bro!
The next season's gonna be a fantasy Western, and I love Western.
Oh word?
So
shit. Look at this guy. You got the whole Western outfit. You even got the chaps and all that shit.
Chaps? No, I don't have chaps. I'm going as the man with no name from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, there we go.
I got the poncho, the hat. I got to work on the cigar or the cigarello, I guess it is. I have to figure out what to do with it.
Get one of those candy ones, bro. Get one of the candy ones painted brown, all chocolate and shit.
Get one of those. Or I was thinking just like wrapping up cardboard like really, really tightly, and then just like having that.
Well, you could actually get hemp paper and put marijuana in it, and make believe you're smoking it, and then you can sell those, by then,
Sure, that is a good point.
Hey,
But so yeah,
I got great books. Here, you get a free blunt.
exactly, and whatever it takes. But yeah, so we're doing our live show, and it is weird to do it live in front of people, but it's also really cool because you get the immediate reaction. So like when you do a joke and like you get an uproar of laughter, okay, that joke hit. So now I can keep going that direction.
So you feel energized when you receive that?
Oh yeah, super, super energized. Like we're usually just running on all cylinders. Usually everybody's super panicky right before it gets started. And then once you get started, we usually start drinking anyways. So you know, out pretty fast. And then you just let it ride. And every year is a different kind of crazy. One year I was throwing inflatable seagulls at people.
What? Seagulls of all things.
We were doing a story about being stuck on the Titanic, and it was a mix between The Thing, Jaws, and Titanic. And the one guy up on stage, his whole thing was he would kill seagulls all the time. So I thought it'd be fun to throw things at the audience. So I got these inflatable seagulls, and I filled them with water beads, so they had some more weight to them. I just started chucking them at the audience. And unfortunately, I hit this one guy in the head like 3 times.
He didn't watch the stage like a Mr. Smith, right?
No, he did not.
Okay. Just want to make sure that you're safe, bro.
He did throw it back the last time. He's like, "Stop hitting me in the head." I'm like, "I'm not literally trying to hit you in the head, but I have."
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I'm not throwing in your direction. It just happens to fly that way. The wind, the gusts in here somehow, in this closed arena.
But yeah, so
I'm digging it, folks. Again, let me show that. So if you guys that don't know, it's Botched, a D&D podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Go check it out now. Subscribe, yo, for real. You're gonna dig it. You can dig it. You hear me?
And if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, we read them at the end of every episode. So.
Oh, word! Check that out. Look at he's teasing you. He's teasing you. I'll read you. I'll read your stuff in a very Barry White voice.
Yeah. Well, it depends.
Thank you for loving. All right. And this person says they love.
Yeah.
They love my podcast.
This message in from Chattanooga, Botched.
Yeah. If you could try to make Chattanooga sound good.
Yeah.
That would be hysterical, bro. We gotta do that. That's the most unsexiest word ever. Chattanooga. All right. Yeah, bro. So, as that new creator, now in your second project, that you're killing it. You're doing it. You're doing your thing, bro. Flowers, like salute, being and for sharing that and not keeping it on the shelf. Thank you for being bold and brave enough to recognize you did have something. Salute to your people for also encouraging and pushing you. That's it's a beautiful thing, bro, that you got right there. People support you in that fashion. So you keep rocking. I know we're gonna see this in a different form really soon. So I want to ask 2 things before you go. What is Hivehead Studios? Talk to me.
So Hivehead Studios was an idea that a long time ago when I was back in college. This was 2006, I think it was. I went to art school for a little bit, and I was majoring in animation. And I was taking a history of animation course, and I was doing a flip book. And the flip book was this chubby little dude or lady. Didn't have a gender, and it had a beehive haircut, but it was like a literal beehive. So a bee flew out of the top, and then the person eats the bee, and then it bounces around in their cheeks, and then their head explodes into like 1,000 bees, and then it spells out Hivehead Studios. And my teacher was like, "Yeah, your flip book's fine, but like that name, keep that name because that's a cool name for a studio." So like, I guess I just kept it in the back of my head. But for business purposes, because this is technically a business, so
of course, you're an entrepreneur. Yeah, bro.
So like taxes and all that stuff, I needed an LLC. So I was like, all right, well, I'll make instead of just using my name and being like Dennis Robinson LLC or like instead of Lycan LLC, because I do plan on doing other books. I was like, okay, I'll have an umbrella and I'll just call it Hivehead Studios. And so I do have other comics that I want to do at some point, but I probably won't do them until this series can become more self-sufficient as opposed to me just constantly backing everything financially and then slowly recouping the cost on things. So, if like the Kickstarter turns out to be like a gigantic success, then I could possibly start working on other things because it's like, okay, now the series is starting to, get legs under it. It's able to take care of
And
itself.
support
I don't
itself.
have to,
Yeah.
exactly.
Isn't that the key? You always want to listen. What it's like, it's like raising a child. You want,
Yeah.
you're building this for it to support itself eventually.
Yeah.
And stop mooching off daddy.
Yeah. So like this series, I'm definitely doing because this is something I've always wanted to do. This is a story that I've always wanted to tell. So one way or another,
Good for you, bro.
this book series is gonna happen. All 15 books, because I know what happens all the way to the last page of the last book. Book 15.
Ooh.
So once it's all done, that's that. So if I can,
folks, don't kidnap him. Do not kidnap him and try to torture him to get the ending. Don't do that. All right. We all want to know too. We'll find out in due time. Just keep supporting.
I appreciate that. But so the idea would be, once it becomes self-sufficient, okay, now I can start telling other stories. But if the series never gets to that point, if it never becomes self-sufficient, then okay, I'll be fine just doing this, and then I'll still be able to tell other stories through the podcast. But if it does, then sure, I'll start making other books. Like I said, I have 2 other ideas in my head already. I just haven't put them down on paper yet.
Excellent, as you should. Awesome. So, what type of advice would you give to up and coming creators too that were in your space at one time, trying to come up and again, first book, successful on the crowdfunding platform already. Again, that's awesome achievement. So, what lessons have you learned for these new jacks trying to step into?
The biggest lesson that I could impart would be networking. Networking is the most important thing you can do, but you have to do it right. So what I mean is a lot of people who are not used to networking think it's like, okay, start talking to a person and then use them for your own benefits. No. People smell that from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
How you should do networking is, go up to somebody, meet with them, talk to them a little bit, try and get their information, and then more of a you scratch their back somehow, some way. And then later on down the road, they'll just help you out because you're friends at that point.
Yes.
That is how I would do networking. Every time I've done any networking, it's because of that, where, I didn't go and talk to somebody because I wanted something. I didn't want them to do something for me. Like all the artists that have helped with Botched. Yeah, I went to them to try and hire them, but I was like paying them for work. So it's like, hey, I want to pay you to do a thing. And then because they worked with us through Botched, I was able to network through them, for other stuff. So for instance,
nice.
The one artist, Cloverkin, her husband is Gabbo, who is now the art editor on the book. Because of her, I got to Gabbo. Because I got to Gabbo, I got all the artists that I have on the book because he put me in touch with a Facebook group. So you never know what contact you make is going to turn into something else completely different. For instance, Botched, a D&D podcast. Our first live show at DragonCon, I think it was either the first or second row, Shannon, who I mentioned earlier, she had never heard of the show. She came, sat in the audience, and then has followed us ever since. And now she and I are good friends. She comes with me to conventions. She pimps this book nonstop. I don't know what.
Shout out Shannon.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know what she tells people because she's like, I don't tell anybody anything that you don't already tell them. But she must be so incredibly passionate when she talks about it because people just start bending over backwards to try and get involved some way.
If it's energy, she must get an awesome energy then, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You give this. I've sold books for Joe St. Pierre. I don't know if he is, awesome artist out of Massachusetts. Every time I would say hello to him, somebody would be looking at a book. I would just pimp it, and he always walk away with a sale. He goes, Al, I need you to be popping out of tables or something for me. Every time you sell a book, like, yeah, you owe me commission, Joe.
Yeah, so I would say, networking is the most important thing because a lot of the other sort of potholes and speed bumps that I have experienced, and I've experienced many, you could avoid if you networked properly. So, for instance, I had issues with like printing. Okay, well, if I had utilized the contacts better that I had in networking, I could have maybe avoided some of those problems. Or when I did hit speed bumps, I got around them because I had people in my network that I could go to, ask questions, get advice for. Kickstarter tips. Went and spoke to a bunch of people. One of the best or most helpful things that somebody gave me for the Kickstarter to research anyways was a PDF of a book from somebody who I can't remember if he's the writer or the artist, but he made Code Monkey Saves the World. It's like one of the biggest Kickstarter comics like of all time.
Yeah.
And so he all of his Kickstarters are super, super successful. We're talking like close to $1 million or more than $1 million
Jesus
for
Christ.
most of them. So he wrote a book about Kickstarter, like making a successful Kickstarter campaign for comic books. So I would definitely go and check that out because it was super helpful, and it touches on a lot of things that you need to know. Like, for instance, if it's your first Kickstarter and nobody knows you, a lot of people go into Kickstarter thinking, okay, I will get the money from Kickstarter and then make the book. Nope,
No.
not if you're new. Your book needs to be done, and then you can do the Kickstarter because people don't trust you. Like, they don't know it's going to be done. Like, a lot of people will make projects and then never follow through with it, and then they just lose that money.
I'm a victim. I'm a victim.
Me too.
I'm a victim.
So,
You know, but I'm a victim from a big guy,
oh, okay.
Rob Liefeld. I'll say it again.
Oh.
You owe me that fucking book brigade, dude. I mean, how many years? Like 10, 12 years already? Oh, look at this. This was black when I ordered it.
But yeah, so that guide gives a lot of really good tips, like making sure your book's done on
You
time.
should have bought that book.
And then factoring in shipping costs. So like literally I went to the post office. I made fake packages based on like what the weight I thought was going to be. Went to the post office and said, how much does it cost to ship these? And one by one, I itemized it and wrote down, okay, this is the amount of shipping I need to charge. I was like, what's the most expensive place in the U.S. I can send this to? Because that's what I'm going to have to charge for shipping.
Hawaii, most likely, right?
You never know. I think it was Alaska or certain parts of California, even maybe.
In the desert, somebody with that one house in the middle of the desert.
Yeah. And then international shipping is the same way, because international shipping is insanely expensive.
It's murder.
It's like, even to ship just a book, it's like $30.
It costs more than the book itself.
Oh yeah, way more than the book. Oh yeah, way more.
How do you even? Okay, so I gotta check out this book, because if he's able to help you kind of figure that out, obviously sounds like a lot of work, but obviously it helps in the process.
And it's not that long of a book, or because like I said, I got the PDF. Somebody had given it to me, and I think it's only like 100 pages or something like that. It's not very long.
If you can't get through 100 pages, then
yeah, and he goes through everything in terms of like fulfillment, reward levels, stretch goals, all that stuff. Like, he breaks things down in a very digestible and understandable manner, and you're not going to be able to get all the information from it, but it's got a lot of really good information. And then the rest you get from research. Like, that's what I spend a lot of time doing when I made the second Kickstarter and the first Kickstarter. I looked around at other Kickstarters and I was like, okay, what did they do that I should incorporate into this Kickstarter? What rewards were they offering? Like, what stretch goals were they going with? What level, what, all that different information. Because you can look at, there are so many different Kickstarter campaigns, both live and ended, to be able to look at and see, what do I think would work or not work? What was successful? What wasn't successful? In certain circumstances, you can even reach out to those creators, and sometimes they'll talk to you and give you like feedback and tips and stuff like that. But again, it's more networking.
Don't be afraid to talk to people.
Yeah, it's definitely something. Like, I am an introvert, so it's one of those things where I just sort of had to become a sociopath and just get over the idea of like, oh, I'm very shy at talking to people I don't know. You just kind of have to get over it. Like, it's not easy. And like, I know it sounds terrible to say, like, just get over it. It doesn't really work that way. You sort of have to practice it and do it and do it and fail at it and fail at it and fail at it until you just sort of get into a rhythm of things. And then it becomes second nature. And you're just like, okay, whatever, it's fine. Like, I have a fear of public speaking, and yet I go and do like 7-8 panels at DragonCon every year because they threw me on so many that I just got over it.
Yeah, I hosted 2 panels once, and I was a nervous wreck.
Now, moderating,
that's the only thing.
I still get nervous, but being
that shit had me like this. I was mega shaking, baby. Holy shit, that had me nervous as heck. It's not me to do that yet. I am like you. I am an introvert. That's why I have Almega as the persona. That's just why when you were talking about dualities, earlier in the program, folks, you're gonna rewind. You gotta hear about that. I'm talking about those duality. That I feel I'm that because I'm Alex Perez and then I'm also Almega. Alex Perez is an introvert. Almega is a loudmouth, as you could tell.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I agree.
Loudmouth. It's the best trait to have as a podcaster. You want to be a loudmouth. Like, you don't want to, like, podcasts don't really work for people who are very quiet and very mousy, because like you need to have a personality that draws people in and gets them interested in whatever you're talking about.
Why did I just picture the lady from Police Academy when you said mousy? Hey, please.
Hey, please. And then she beats them. Yeah. But yeah, so and I'm not like that normally outside of, you know, podcasting or doing this sort of stuff. It's just one of those things that I've practiced it over time and gotten used to it, to the point where it's like, okay, I can be outgoing. I can trick people into thinking I'm an extrovert, when really I'm not. I'd much prefer to stay in my house by myself with the dog and just do whatever.
Yeah, I hear you, kiddo. But that's good stuff too. You see, folks, we're all introverts. We can be extroverts. It's true. Not that it's easy, you know. Not just get over it, man. You know, but you know what we mean by that. It's just fight it. Don't let that inner voice that tries to tell you no. You know, you say no to that motherfucker. All right.
Yeah. So practice.
Yeah, it's just practice. Everything in life. So check it out. Because again, look at all his dope practice. You can check it out at hiveheadstudios.com. Visit that website so you'll get the volume 1, right? They could buy book 1 from there from you? From your website?
So if you go on hiveheadstudios.com, you can buy the book. You can buy it physically, you can buy it digitally, and you can actually download the first 18 pages for free to even see if you like the book. So if you're like, I'm curious about it, but I'm not quite sure, you can buy, or not even buy, because it's $0. So you can download a free sample of the book, and it's like the first quarter of the book. It's a little bit more than a quarter. And you know, that'll give you an idea.
You hear this, folks? You hear that, right? That's how much he believes in the product. You get an 18-page sample. That's almost a full-length comic book by today's standards. You know what I mean?
True. And then with the next Kickstarter that launches on September 2nd, I will also have some tiers that have like the first and second book like bundled together. Or if you wanted to go one of the higher tiers but still need the first book, you can just add it as an add-on.
Ooh, there you go. You see that? You're going to be left behind, folks. Get the whole story. And support them too on Patreon. Sort of love. You get some exclusive content there. We love exclusivity. That's where you got to go. So patreon.com/hiveheadstudios. And there you go. Follow him on Instagram at World's Most Okay ESTDM.
So it's World's Most Okayest DM, because that's
Okayest DM.
Yeah, that's what my players call me. So it kind of stuck on the internet.
They stuck. That's your tag, bro. All right, but that is a long tag. The cops would have arrested you by the time you finished tagging that wall. And of course, folks, visit Lycan book, LYCANBOOK.com, so you could get notified on the second project. September 2nd is dropping. We don't know. Will it be in the morning? Will it be midday, afternoon? No one knows, but then it all depends when he wakes up. All right. And of course, you can follow him on his podcast, Botched, a D&D podcast on your favorite podcasting platform today. So sign up, join up, and have a hell of a time as you check them out. Bro, you've been awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. It's been fun.
Thank you for having me on, man. It was a great time. It was great talking to you. I appreciate, having the time.
No, but it's fire, yo. Pick up this book. I'm already, like I said, halfway through one, and I'm digging it. Again, I got upset that I had to stop reading to talk to the writer. You believe that shit? Yeah, that's how good it is. You're doing a wonderful job, brother. You made me a fan today. And Comic Crusaders is your partner for life right there, bro. For real. And with that, saying that, you know what to do, mi gente. Follow us on comiccrusaders.com. Got all the links for everything. Reviews, previews, columns. You know what I mean? All that good stuff. Follow us also on undercovercapes.com. That's my extended family. Some dope projects by Johnny the Machine Hughes, you know what I mean? David Taylor and everybody else, on the team. We got some dope stuff coming up real soon. So stay tuned on the socials, you know what I mean? On YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. All right? Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Much love. Wepa! Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.